This is Gema Electric Ghost, and we are live on the air with Gema. Thank you. It's the first time we've interviewed. And we're talking to you from Spain, right?
Yeah, I am in Spain, in the coast, actually.
And we're in New Hampshire, USA. So that's pretty cool. So, what they do in this podcast is we do behind the music type of interviews with singer-songwriters and musicians. So we're happy that Gema is able to be on the show today. And
very happy to be here.
Thank you. It's pretty cool that we are able to arrange this. We do have to get our sponsor mentioned. We have a sponsor on iOS app called Newsly. If you go to www.newsly.me or go to the Android App Store or iOS App Store, you can get the Newsly app, which reads the news back to you and also hosts podcasts. And this podcast is actually on Newsly. So what it does, it will translate it from a video to an audio only. So what they do is they also translate news articles into audio only streams. So use coupon code GHOST2021. You get 1 month free premium subscription to Newsly, and you can stop scrolling and start listening. And so use the coupon code GHOST2021 and get 1 month free premium subscription. So we have mentioned our sponsor, and they'll be happy. So now we're gonna bring up your so people can go on Instagram. Just hold a second. My machine was acting weird for a second, but I think I got it up. Yeah, so we have your Instagram home. We encourage people to check that out. So Thanks. You're a singer-songwriter, and we actually have a clip of your music. It's kind of behind the music, kind of unplugged type of performance on the piano. And so if you don't mind, we're going to actually go and cue that up, and we're going to play that before we go into the interview so people can hear what you sound like before we get into the full interview. Is that cool?
Super. Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on mute, and when we'll come back, you'll see yourself back on the screen, and then we'll go into it. So we're going to introduce this song. We'll do it right now.
Muy normal, pero mi amiga y yo empezamos a buscar, y entonces vino la revelación. No éramos parte del juego ni la acción. Why you follow him, don't you wonder why you follow him, don't play with my body. Solo quiero verte un poco más de frente, muéstrame tu cara si vas a estallar. Solo quiero verte un poco más de frente, muéstrame tu cara si vas a estallar. Parecer que lo voy a olvidar, aunque me hierve por dentro esta desigualdad. Dime cuándo vas a mirar fijamente, poner tu cara para ella. Solo quiero verte un poco más de frente, muéstrame tu cara si vas a estallar. No te voy a hacer lo mismo, tranquilo, pero deja de decirme que es lo mismo si es un chanes. Estamos solo en femenino. Tú calla, tú calla, tú cállate. Tú calla, tú calla, tú cállate. Tú cállate, pero deja de decirme y deja de decirme y deja de decirme. Solo quiero verte un poco más de frente. Tú calla, tú calla, tú cállate. Tú calla, tú calla, tú cállate. Solo quiero verte un poco más. Solo quiero verte un poco más. Solo quiero verte. Solo quiero verte.
So that was the performance, and you're back. You can hear you can hear me, right? And you're back. Your mic's on, right?
Yeah, right.
Yep. So that's I think that's a really cool performance, because I'm a pianist and I'm a keyboardist, and I like it when I'm able to play on a piano without all my synthesizers and like an unplugged performance. And I think that shows like the honesty of your work. And I think it let everybody hear it like without being like layered and all the other stuff we can do in the studio. I think that's a really good representation of your voice.
Yeah, you're right.
So I think what we like to do is we're going to start from the beginning. We sent you some questions, and part of what we do on this program is we kind of start from the beginning. So the first question we always ask a musician is like, when did you first get into music and at what age?
Well, I realized that singing makes me feel strong feelings. Like when I really realized that I can do something with my voice was a very early years. Maybe I had 5 years old, 6 years old, and I listened for first time Whitney Houston song. So that for me was like a catharsis. So I thought, oh wow, I wanted to do that, right? So after that, I just invent melodies in my voice, in my mind, and then there was a guitar in my house, so I just joined me with an instrument, not like guitar, that I had in my home. And that's how I really start, and get into music. And also because in my childhood home, my mom plays a lot of music recordings from American music, and some Spanish too, but mostly American.
That's interesting that Whitney Houston was like a big influence, because she's like a worldwide artist, so I guess it influences beyond our shores. And a lot of like music I listen to is from Europe and Africa and other places too. So I think we all get our influences. It's interesting when I hear like people's influences. Like you always hear like Mariah Carey's or the Whitney Houstons or Beatles come up all the time. So it's kind of interesting, especially with vocalists. Vocalists will kind of name check certain
people. But that. Yeah. Then after, when I was a teenager, I had other influences, sure. But it happened to me very soon. So that was my first reference. Like, wow. Yeah. I wanted to do that. That's the answer is that, like, oh, I wanted to do that. I wanted to feel what she's feeling, while she's singing.
Well, I think it's interesting you said it was cathartic, because I think a lot, as a singer-songwriter myself, people ask me, like, are you trying to write music to make hits? It's like a lot of times I work out songs, whether or not I'm going to publish them, it's kind of like I'm working through my life.
Yeah.
And I use my art to do that. And then a percentage of it, I'll say, I'll actually release it. And the other percentage was like cathartic. And then it gets me
You
to
just keep it. Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's
yeah. It's like, that lets you know, develop more and more and improves how you understand the whole thing about music. Yeah. And I understand that point.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of musicians were like, we would do it whether or not we make a hit. It's kind of like in our DNA. And when I talk to musicians, they usually start very young. Yeah, a lot of musicians, and then they continue. Like, you get the people that stop because of what they didn't, they had certain expectations. But I think a lot of people, like, if it's in you, you never really stop. You keep on doing it, and you find your audience finds you.
Sure. Well,
So
I hope so.
You've been working on it for a long time. You've been working on music as a younger person. It's like, maybe kind of tell me the path. Like, you started at a certain age. You've been working on it. When did you discover that you could actually, work on your own material and not really just sing other people's material? Or did you start right away? It sounded like you were working on your own ideas right away.
Well, it wasn't till late, actually, because I was so embarrassed. For me, it was really feeling deep inside. So I feel very, very embarrassed to show the others my talent. So it wasn't until my 50s when I get more into the playing the guitar and join with the guitar my voice. It wasn't until that I didn't really work in composing, no, for example. And it took me a lot to feel secure inside to show my voice and how I feel, because I always said that I feel it's so naked that I had personal, like naked, like feel naked.
Well, I think
so.
One thing I would think, what I found is, like, singer-songwriters, the reason they really touch people is because there's that ability to be that naked with your emotion. And that is kind of like a universal thing where.
Yeah. But it took me a lot to understand that this is right? Because I didn't understand that I could do that without judgment, for example.
Yeah, I think the problem is sometimes, like, there are singer-songwriters, famous singer-songwriters that have been so open. People are like, is that their real life? Is that really? And then it's kind of like you kind of want some layer of protection between, like, your artist self and your real self. And singer-songwriters, we always kind of blur the line. Bob Dylan's like famous for his like Blood on the Tracks album, where he like revealed a very personal nature of his like divorce. And most of the time he'd been talking about politics and talking about these. And then he actually finally had a personal album. And even then there was a lot of allegory. There was a lot of layers where, you didn't really know exactly, like, is that really him? But it's supposed to be about his divorce. And he still made it kind of like separated. He kind of, through his songs, he created
it's hard
characters to kind of separate himself from it. But he actually, I think it's universal that you take your feelings and you put it into your song, and some of them like are real things that happened, and you find to artistically do it.
Yeah, sure. The thing is that the moment that I realized that I could do something with my voice, with my music, was when I first show my songs or my slightly compositions to my very close friends and not family, because I was so afraid. But they was like, wow, you really shoot me some feelings, right? So I realized that I could do something, because I have the ability to make this impact of the emotional part of ourselves.
I think that's our talent. Like, a painter connects emotionally with their art. Actors can connect emotionally and kind of do, a method actor, and you can get so caught up in the role that you become that person, or you take stuff from your life and you make it real. I mean, like, singer-songwriters and musicians, we have a little bit of an actor capability, right? Because when we perform, we kind of act like an actor.
Yeah.
Some
you have to imagine that you are feeling that feeling, right? Because maybe I wrote a song 10 years ago and I didn't have this situation anymore, but I can understand. I have to act, no? Like
you have to kind of put yourself in that place, because if you have a very emotional song that has a lot of emotional power in the voice, even if you're not feeling that way, because it's not the day you wrote it. Like the day you wrote it, that's the way you felt. And then suddenly as a musician, you got to go on stage and you might not feel like that today, but you still got to figure that out to kind of carry it over. And so that's where we can become actors, and we have like stagecraft, and we can put a mask on. I think every musician, when you go on stage, seems like the other you. It's like another version of you that's maybe more extreme than what you really are. But in order to be able to do songs, that's who you are. I think that's what I found as a musician. Like I had to find that confidence. I didn't get confidence to actually start performing vocals until like 2008. I'm like I was 4 years old. I mostly played keyboards in bands. I never sang. And then suddenly I realized if I'm ever going to have my own work, I actually got to sing it. I can't just, I got to actually, and then I had to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out how am I actually going to sing. And it took a while. I mean, I didn't start singing. I've been playing since I was 17. I didn't start singing until 2008. So it is a process. It takes a while.
It is a process. Yeah. And I've been improving that process, and now I feel like ready to, I was ready, like even you are not always, no, you are not never too ready to be performing, like super confidence. But I feel that I'm in my moment now to release my recordings and everything.
So the other thing I like to ask is like, you did mention some of your a couple of influences. I think Whitney Houston. Maybe you talked about some maybe other influences or references people could understand.
Yeah, sure. When I was like in my teenager, like 12, 30, 40 years old, till 80, more or less, I found that I discovered a lot of music that I get interested in, like like the best singer, like Aretha Franklin, Janis Joplin, even Jamiroquai, Eva Cassidy, Neil Young.
Neil Young. Yeah, I love Neil Young.
Yeah, Otis Redding, I love it. And most of all, I get very, very deep with Lauryn Hill. I love her.
Amazing. Yeah, that stuff. The work she did was kind of point in time with the Fugees and her solo album.
The album Unplugged is like wow. Like very, very.
That was so good. It was just unbelievable. A lot of power.
I feel very influenced by Lauryn Hill.
That's interesting. You mentioned Neil Young, and like in a lot of my music, I'm an electronic musician, and people are like, how can you like Neil Young? I like his Crazy Horse stuff. I like the stuff he does with the Crazy Horse, because part of my music is kind of like Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails. I got a very aggressive kind of industrial kind of punk power. And I like the way that Neil is able to do his like Nashville, really intricate country music, but then he also does this kind of grungy, hard rock, kind of punk influenced music with Crazy Horse, and he can kind of go both ways. And I always thought that was interesting that he's able to have that range. Because he's a folk singer, and he also goes and does heavy rock, and so he can go between the two, which is kind of cool.
And also his voice, isn't it? Like it was very original, like in terms of.
Yeah, it's very emotional. He has a very interesting voice where he lets it get like the vulnerability. I think the cool thing about him is he allows his voice to be very vulnerable. He kind of is, he doesn't actually try to make it perfect all the time. Sometimes
I think that's something that I'm very interested in. That's very, I feel that nowadays with autotune and I don't know, it's something about perfection that is in all the medias, and I find very interesting to see an artist without fear to shows the weakness, no?
Yeah, well, I think the thing about the 70s is people, even in the 80s before all these computers, is even the 60s, is the fact that you could go, Bob Dylan doesn't have the most perfect voice. And Neil Young allows the vulnerability to be in his voice. And even though Joni Mitchell, she has a certain level of vulnerability that people today, I think because of the computers, because of the digital audio workstations, one of the things they make a mistake, I always tell people when I'm doing production work and I work with people, is I don't like to be perfect. I think that imperfection is part of the art. And the happy accidents, and I always tell people, like, if you think about the Rolling Stones and you think about Exile on Main Street and you think about the way Jagger and Richards wrote that, there's a lot of imperfections in the timing.
Sure, because
and
it's
vocals, it's more natural. And
because this human part is more important, right?
Yeah, like Exile on Main Street is one of the greatest rock and roll records because it's like a mixture of blues, country, and rock, and it's kind of unstable. It's not exactly perfect, but it's perfect in its imperfection. It's kind of like.
I think from Whitney, I wanted to say, maybe it comes to my mind. Just maybe it's a joke, right? Maybe from Whitney Houston, we all became more perfectionally, like in our voices, no, like was too good too.
Well, Whitney kind of comes from that Motown kind of classic soul, like Aretha Franklin, Motown type singers, like in the Nat King Coles and the Frank Sinatras. There was a whole thing about having a perfect pitched voice, and I understand there's a whole history in music where people were professional singers and they actually didn't write the songs, right? They actually are professional singers that had really good voices, multiple octave, 5-octave voices, or really good baritones or sopranos, and they focused on the voice. And I understand that. And there's still a lot of people to do that. But my whole thing is, I think that you should allow the imperfections to be there. And that's part of the art. It's like an artist, a painter. It's like a painter's going to do that painting. And it's the layer is what it is. It's kind of point in time. And sometimes when you're recording, if you think about it, like you do 10 takes, probably take 1, 2, and 3 or closer to your original intent. But if you ever take it to like take 90, you get so far away from what you originally were going to do, right?
Sure.
That you're spending your time trying to make it perfect. You're trying to make it perfect. And the third take probably is the best one because it's closer to what you really wanted to do. And the problem today is people try to take 100 when they should take 2, 3.
I'm a little bit like that. I have both, right? I have I'm very perfectionate about how I sound and everything. And I understand because we have all this culture about perfection and like with Beyonce now, no, like how can you feel that you have to do it right? But also it's very important what you are saying, because sure, we forget about how beautiful are the imperfection.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times what I think happens is in a musician is the further you get away from the original version, the more you start correcting yourself and then start saying, well, maybe I shouldn't say that, or maybe I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And then you start second guessing yourself, and the original art is closer to what it really should be. And
you forget what you feel, and you start to have these thoughts in your mind that just don't flow. The feelings don't flow. It's just being too mentality.
Yeah, I think that's where people, a lot of people today, they forget that, and they're so into the hook. They're so into trying to get the melody right and make it catchy. And I understand there's a drive in the industry to get that catchy hook. And, even if you go back to Motown, they spent a lot of time trying to get those hooks, and the drummers spent a lot of time trying to get those drum parts exactly right. But even back then, it was like, okay, they got it and then they put it down, and it was still like, it was a point in time thing where they picked it. and they made good choices. They had good producers. They had good, songwriters that kind of knew how to get the hook and put it together, but they still kind of put it together in a more organic way where they would the whole band would go into the studio and play it through.
Yeah.
And I think when you do it part by part, bar by bar, it gets antiseptic. It gets less organic because then you're being too critical. And I see there's a reason to do that. There's a reason. Like you think about like Bruce Springsteen spent like 6 months on Born to Run. 6 months on that one track because he just was very obsessed about trying to make it perfect. And he had this kind of Phil Spector wall of sound idea, and he just kept on layer and layer and layer and layer. And it came out brilliant. But there's a lot of his songs that are less like contrived like that. And actually
like Beatles. Beatles in one song I right? So
yeah.
Do you hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me?
You lost it a little bit, but you come back. You're back.
No, I was saying that the Beatles, am I?
Yeah, you're back.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, they're here.
Yeah, well, definitely you're right. I agree. What are you saying?
Yeah, I think like George Martin was like, his production style kind of took what the Beatles were and enhanced it compared to like just them playing live. They started using the studio as an instrument, and I think that's what people do with their DAW. You use your DAW as another instrument. And the thing is like the trick is how much do you do? I think it's a degree. Like if you think about like a guy like Prince, like you think about like when Doves Cry doesn't have the bass line, right? And it was a choice to pull it out. And when the bass line's not there, it actually sounds totally different. I've actually heard the version that has the bass line, and there's a good reason why he pulled it out, because it just sounds better without it. And there was a lot of people who were producers that said you can't put a song without a bass. And then it's like, well, sometimes you got to break the rule because the song deserves it. Certain songs, maybe there should be no cymbals. Maybe there should be no hi-hat. It kind of is like what it is. And if you have somebody, we always have to have the hi-hat. We always have to have no, you don't. You have to do what serves the song. The song requires it, then you do it. But you just don't do it because the last 10 songs had it.
Sure. That's the reason I think that everything can be possible, everything can be right, as long as you do it from your truth, right? If you really feel that the bass don't have to be there, or if you really feel that that you want an algorithm to make a song, why not doing it? It's all right. We don't have to be like catastrophic or too complacent about that, but I really think that you have to do it with your truth and experiment and explore and be obsessed. Yeah, you say obsessed. Why not? Picasso says that you need obsession to make art, no? And
I mean, you have to be a little obsessed, because the thing about it, like, how many hours did you take to learn how to play piano? You kind of have to be you have to be directed as a musician.
Yeah,
right?
And sometimes, sure. And sometimes you have to be very focused on it in order to improve.
Sorry. Yeah, because you perfect your voice, you perfect your guitar playing. It's a lot of hours that before you ever hit the mic, as a musician, that you perfect some aspect of your art, and it becomes like natural. So like if you're a singer and you're playing guitar, well, your guitar playing has to kind of be like, you can't be looking at the guitar, you got to like know it. And if you're a piano player, you got to kind of know it. The drummer's got to know. So it's just that's the work you put in. And it is somewhat, like an athlete, you have to put the time in. You have to build that muscle memory or to know where you're playing on the piano. And that's the kind of obsessive level of it, and how far you take it. I think some people have to understand that sometimes doing a song like stream of consciousness. You know, I've been into a lot of what I've been doing in the last 5 years. I used to spend a lot of time constructing songs, and then I started saying, you know what, I'm just going to turn my mic on, turn my recorders on, and just kind of just record stream of consciousness, and then put down whatever I get, and then go back and listen to it, and then find the things I think I should work on. And I would just every day do practices where I just kind of go, maybe I had an idea I wrote on the paper, and then I just go with it. And I find that by being more relaxed and just letting it go, kind of like saying, oh, there's this universal idea, I'll just let the muse come in. I'll let my instrument kind of tell me what I should do that day. Because
that's interesting what you're saying. Yeah, I understand that. What you say that the universe, no, like the ideas are in the universe, and you just have to go to it to get them. And for that you have to work a lot.
Yeah, instead of
you have to work and work.
Yeah, I mean, when I was like, I used to sit on paper and try to write it out, and then I found like I ended up changing it all the time, because like as soon as I got to the piano, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I would do something else. It's like, so it's like I just said, well, why don't I just sit at the piano and just write it from there, right? Or to sit at my synthesizer and write it from there. And I find that I do a lot better. I mean, there's some things I actually write out. I'll have a lyric. And this is the question I have for you. Like, do you start with like your piano or your guitar, or is it, you know, something on the paper, or it doesn't matter? Like some songs, they start different ways, you know? So, in
my case, for example, I start playing when I was younger, just a melody in my head, just singing without instrument. And then mostly because I didn't play piano. I didn't have a keyboard till my 25s. Well, actually till my 30s or something like that. Like, so 5 years ago. But I always have been in touch with piano. Well, the thing is that I started playing, for example, in my case, with guitar, and I play guitar, and at the time I'm playing, very easy a melody came to me. So
it's a good writing instrument. I think the guitar and the piano are like the primary writing instruments. And you know, now people have synthesizers and they use those because they can do everything. But like I always, it was a guitar or a piano is the writing instrument, because you can just sit down and you run through a chord arrangement on either a guitar or a piano. The ability to do the chords, it kind of builds a song. You know, just putting the chord progressions together.
Yeah, sure. But you know, I don't know what I'm playing. I didn't study music.
Oh, you just feel it.
I just feel it. I have learned like 2 songs or 3 songs at the piano, and from that I just start to explore to myself and compose my own songs. So I just sit in the piano and the keyboard or take my guitar, and I just explore it, and through that
I think that sometimes being taught can give you limitations. Like what I always found is like there's a bunch of, there's famous musicians I love, like Hendrix. Hendrix taught himself. He was left-handed and he restrung the guitar to fit his left-handed nature.
I do feel limited. Yeah, you're right. I do feel limited sometimes, but sometimes you are more like open to everything.
Yeah, I think if you have if you're not an expert at your instrument, you might come at it and you didn't learn all the theory. Sometimes people come from that background. We come and do things that other people wouldn't have done, because like people who are taught the music theory, they're like, oh, I'm only going to stay in this lane. And they never go outside that lane, where somebody's like, well, why not do that? Like, so like, I never really, I took some piano lessons, but I wasn't really heavy. I was a clarinet player. I knew how to play my clarinet, but I knew that I couldn't really write anything with a clarinet. It's hard to write like a song with a clarinet. I can do the melody, but I need a writing instrument. So I started learning keyboards, and I got really into synths, and I really taught myself by listening. I'm kind of like, a lot of people like African American, we kind of play by ear. And I just
Yeah.
like, I listen to something and then I can pick it up and I can find
Cool.
the chords, I can find it. And it's just like, that's how we do it. And it's always been a lot of African Americans. We never even went to school for it. We just pick it up. And, you know, I think it's nothing wrong with doing that. Most of the blues guys, most of the famous blues men, you know, Led Belly, Robert Johnson, B.B. King, they all kind of taught themselves.
Yeah.
And
well, also, yeah, you're right. Also, in my case, is my first instrument is my voice. To be honest, so I've been taught. I explore more in the technical way. I explore more my voice in that sense. No, like it's my first instrument, but keyboard. I love keyboard. And guitar is my first instrument before keyboard. So, but my instrument is my voice.
Your voice,
definitely.
Yeah, I've talked to singer-songwriters, you know, in the past for since 2018. We've had like 140 interviews, and I would say like singer-songwriter singers always mention, and they need to tell people like your voice is your instrument, and I understand that because it is, and you know, it's I mean, being a vocalist is being, you know, the people, what do you play? I said, well, your voice is your instrument. So like you're still a musician because that's part of the whole craft, and it's really necessary. Because I only played keyboard for a long time, and I couldn't really get a song heard if I didn't sing. You know, so you have to sing to get your song through. If you want to be like an artist, you have to sing your own work.
Yeah. Sure.
So maybe I know you're working on a project. Maybe you want to talk about like where you are on your new album and the project you're working on.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to connect my battery because I have a low battery.
Okay, that's fine.
Here we go. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Say again, please.
Yeah, you're still here. Oh, what I was saying is, maybe you want to talk about the project you're working on, because you're working on an album or some music, right? That you're going to be putting out.
Yeah. Well, as I'm planning to move to Madrid in September to live there. I was living there for 3 years before coronavirus, actually. But so my plan is go there and record. First 3 songs and then 3 songs more, and I mean I'm really planning to record like 10 songs and see what happened with that songs and see what they sound, because I've been composing till from my 50s, right? So I have a lot of songs, different moments, different genres, different influences. So I'm not afraid. I was afraid that to make an album with very different styles and genres, and so I wanted to be coherent, but I do want to be coherent to myself too. I have learned that if I do an album with a very different songs, between them, it is okay.
Yeah, I think that's the nature. Like if you go back in the 70s, right, and you look at the age of the album, like people put together albums, and part of the nature of an album is that they are more interesting if every song isn't the same, right? So there's a lot of classic albums from the 70s and 80s that have a very eclectic structure, but they feel cohesive. Yeah, they feel cohesive. I mean, I think Prince is a really good example. Again, is Prince records, he had multiple capabilities. So on the same record, you could have a funk song, a pop song, a rock song, a dance song. And so they're not all the same. If you listen to his classic albums, they're not, you know, Purple Rain is somewhat similar, but it's not. I mean, Purple Rain has like dance songs with just drum machines and then full rock songs and then ballads. It kind of bounces around. It's not all the same. It might seem like it is, but
right.
It isn't, you know, and if you go to any of his records, they're very diverse in their structure.
Yeah. Yeah, in a structure, but they have this coherence, between. I mean, like furthermore, like more like to do a techno song, and suddenly have a classical blues song, and
Yeah, I think that's cool.
In the other have a Mediterranean, influences and roots, and then I quite, because it's what I've been doing and what I've been working on all these years, and yeah, I don't know, a lot of people tell me why you haven't recorded before. I said, I don't know, maybe I didn't have the money, I didn't have the confidence, I didn't have the, I didn't have the chance, I guess.
Well, I think it is a process. I mean, I've been a musician since I was 17. I started putting out records in 2016, and it took a long time. It's like I was working, but I never put any records out until 2016. This is Fam Electric Ghost. We had some technical difficulties at the end of that interview with Gema Elagua, but it was very good, and we just wanted to finalize the ending here and tell you to check out Gema Elagua on her Instagram, and we hope to have her back on the show in the future when she has her full project ready for everybody to hear. And we do think we had a really great interview, and we appreciate the fact that Gema came on the program. We'll talk to you later. Remember, subscribe to Fam Electric Ghost on our YouTube. Also check us out on our SoundCloud and Spotify channels. This podcast is also on Spotify podcast, video podcast, and we are also on Apple podcast as audio program, and Google podcast and YouTube. So check it out. Also check out on our SoundCloud. Make sure you subscribe to us and hit the COVID support button if you think what we're doing here is cool, because we do not ask our people that come on for our interviewees don't have to pay. So if you can help us out with our podcasting costs, that'd be cool. Check it out on our Spotify, the COVID support button, or the SoundCloud support button. Thank you very much, and we appreciate people tuning in to Fam Electric Ghost, where we interview artists from all over the world. Thank you.